Hi everyone, Courtney Gruenholz back at my book Nook today to talk about young adult teen fiction. I'm going to actually kind of call this young adult teen fiction of the 1990s. So, um, when the 90s started, I was about 6 years old, and I turned 7 in 1990. So, and I loved reading even then, and my favorite things to go to were scholastic book fairs. I think the last time I ever remember going to a book fair was like in 5th grade, because by the time I got to like middle school, when I was like 11 years old, they didn't really do them that much anymore. But in like elementary school, they always had scholastic book fairs. So most of the books that I got from there were of the young adult teen fiction of the point horror variety. So point horror was a series that got started towards the end of the 1980s and started in the early 1990s, where it had many writers like R.L. Stine, Diane Ho, Caroline B. Cooney, Richie Tankersley Cusick, and Christopher Pike, and all sorts of other authors writing books of like thriller and horror fiction. So, which also started my love of R.L. Stine's Fear Street, and so there were lots of authors that wrote, teen fiction that was horror, mystery, thriller, suspense type stories. And I collected a lot of stuff like that during the early 90s. There's a lot of stuff that I did miss, but I have had a chance to get reprintings of books and, of course, finding originals stuff on Amazon, and through going to half-price books, going in-store, and finding stuff online. So it's actually what I'm going to call like 90s teen fiction young adult, literature. So as you see here, I've got this little setup right here. Since some of them are so small, you can always stack a whole lot more. So I don't have my Fear Street ones yet. We're going to get to that eventually, but I do have all of this lovely YA, stuff right here. And, it's mostly what most would say scholastic YA fiction and stuff. So some things I found online, some things I had, some things I found in thrift stores. So I'll just go through a little bit of my collection of what I have. So I got this on Amazon. This is by Sinclair Smith. It's called Dream Date. And he had another one called The Waitress, which was part of the Point Horror series. So they had like many writers writing for it, and eventually they phased it out, and then they kind of brought it back, and they also had like Point Horror Unleashed and stuff, and now they've been kind of bringing it back and stuff. But these are like the classics that I kind of wanted. So I got this off Amazon. So it's in very good condition. It even says very good condition. So I think like for like the UK edition was different with the cover art than this one is. So sweet dreams and rest in peace is what it says on the front. So so a lot of this stuff I never got to read when it first came out. So but yeah, I would always get the Point Horror books, and in the back they would always have the authors that would write for them and the books that they had. And you could always get these books for like $3.25, $2.95, $3.50. So yeah, you used to be able to fill out these forms and you could get all these books. So like getting $20 for like your birthday or Christmas would be like a dream thing for me. So I never sent off for any of these, because some of them I could always find, but since they started phasing out the point horror books, now you have to get these online at like, off Amazon and, half price books, or go out to thrift stores and find them. But so they always had of course R.L. Stine, Caroline B. Cooney, Diane Ho, Christopher Pike, Richie Tankersley Cusick, Sinclair Smith's Dream Date. They also have The Waitress. A. Bates, Carol Ellis, La Licky, and D.E. Atkins. Deathkins. So that was always like the coolest author name I ever heard. D.E. Atkins. It didn't take me long to figure out what it spelled. But so obviously it's a pen name. So, but yeah, you could fill these out in the back of these point horror books, and like I said, like $2.95 is like the cheapest one, and the most expensive was like $3.50. But yeah, you could just like get all of these books. So, and so this was from 1993. So Sinclair Smith is actually a pen name, because if you'll look inside these books, they'll always have a copyright thing, and it's copyrighted to a Donna, Donna Smith. So Sinclair Smith is a pen name. So I have yet to read that one. So ones that I have read I can talk about. Ones that I haven't read I won't talk about. But I'll just go through my collection. Caroline B. Cooney. I have a few Caroline B. Cooney books here. She's most famous for writing the Face on the Milk Carton series. So it's most people call it the Janie Johnson series. I always say the Face on the Milk Carton because that's the first book in the series, and that's how I remember the most. Plus, they had a TV movie of it with Kelly Martin in it, and it actually combined the first two books because the second book was Whatever Happened to Janie. So they kind of combined that together. But she's most famous for that, but she was also good at writing a thriller YA fiction. And I got this one off Amazon. It is Caroline B. Cooney's Freeze Tag. So, and it's in really good condition too. So, like I said, I don't mind getting used books as long as they look really good. And if you have to get a used copy that's not perfect, you always try to find a better one. But so it's also a first I've ever seen. It actually tells you who did the color illustration for this. This is by Craig White. So, and I love that raised lettering type's all shiny and blue. So Freeze Tag, which I have not read yet. Again, these books are also very small. They're like maybe like 140, maybe 130, 50 pages. So you can read them pretty fast. So Caroline B. Cooney also had a series of books that she wrote. This is actually a omnibus collection of the 3 books. In here they're called Deadly Offer, Evil Returns, and Fatal Bargain. But I remember them as The Cheerleader, The Return of the Vampire, and then The Vampire's Promise. So it's 3 books all together, and it's about a vampire who lives in the creepy tower of this house. And it goes through a bunch of different people living in the house in the first 2 books and then being abandoned by the 3rd. So in the first book, there's a girl named Althea who wants to be a cheerleader because the cheerleaders are really popular and stuff. So she gets chummy with a girl named Celeste, and she makes a deal with this vampire that he can make her popular by draining like the popularity out of the other girls and giving it to Althea. So and then it's basically almost the same thing that happens in the next book with a new girl. Her name is Devney, and she makes the same deal with the vampire. So, and then the third book, it's a whole bunch of these kids that wander into the house where the vampire's at, and the main girl is Lacey. So, it's been a long time since I actually read the second and third ones. The Vampire's Promise and Return of the Vampire. I had the cheerleader, but I never had the other two. And once I found this edition that had all three of them together, I got rid of my copy of the cheerleader. So, but I read the Return of the Vampire and the Vampire's Promise back when I was in middle school, because we had like all these books, and you could take a book to read and read it during like study hall, but you would have to give it back. But it wasn't a library book. It was just like a bunch of books that like our English teacher had, and you could just take these books and you could read them, but you'd have to give them back. And some people didn't give back books. I have to admit, if I found a book that I really liked, I did give it back. But I did give back those after I finished reading them. So this is 3 books in 1 by Caroline B. Cooney. So, and of course, going back to add to my collection of all the point horrors that I missed, I got this off of Amazon. It's used. It's The Bride by D.E. Atkins. So, let's go in here. And it has it underneath D.E. Atkins. Of course, it's a pen name. And this is from June in 1996. So I've seen a different cover of this one before. But The Bride. And they always had titles like, like The Bride or The Train or The Perfume and The Invitation and stuff like that. So it's kind of easy to be like, well, how can you make like a bride scary? How's an invitation scary? How's a bottle of perfume scary? And they can find a way to take these titles and actually make really good stories out of them. But D.E. Atkins is a pen name for another author that I think I'll be able to mention here in these books as I get to them. But if the videos start running long or I start running out of time to talk about them, then we'll talk about them next time. I have 1 book by Carol Ellis. I hope to get more. And this is one of those books that I got at the Scholastic Book Fair a long time ago. Because it was another one of those books that like I read and then I had to give it back. But then when I went to like a book fair and they had it, I bought it. So, and it's also one of those things that has all these stickers. My copy of The Cheerleader by Caroline B. Cooney had it too. A $3.50 value, now only $1.99. And this was for Camp Fear by Carol Ellis. And see, it even has it in here, a little stamp that I got when I got my book. You can't see it, but it says Mount Washington Middle School Fair. So, like I said, around middle school, that's when they kind of stopped doing all these book fairs and stuff. So, like it says Mount Washington Middle School Book Fair. And this was from 1993. And it's about a bunch of camp counselors. Some of them used to be campers at the Camp Silver Lake. And a long time ago, a little boy ended up dying at the camp. And they kind of had something to do with it a little bit, but now they're grown up and they're back as camp counselors for this camp, and a couple of new people didn't go to the camp. So what happens is they like share their fears and stuff, things that they're afraid of, and then somebody is using this to like scare them with like really deadly pranks, because one of them is finding a rattlesnake in their bunk bed. So this is one of my favorite books. Like I said, I got this when I was in middle school, so it's like about 11 or 12. So That's another thing I liked about Scholastic book fairs. You could get books that came out a little bit earlier. Like I said, I was like in middle school, so I turned 10 in 1993. So I was in middle school the following year. So you could go like get books that came out like a year or two before, and that was really interesting. So um, Camp Fear is a good book by Carol Ellis. I haven't read any others. I plan to get more in the future. So one that wasn't really part of Point Horror, but I kind of always lumped it in with my books. This is actually from like Avon Flame Press instead of like the Scholastic books. But I think, well, it has, yeah. This was also from the Mount Washington Middle School. It says library, but I did not get this from the library. I got it at the same book fair. I think where I got Camp Fear by Carol Ellis, but there's a little stamp down there that says Mount Washington Middle School Library. And it has my name in it. I wrote my name in it, my maiden name, Lonis, Lones. So, but no, I bought this at a book fair, so I did not take this from the library. So, this book is by Elaine Ferguson, and it is called Overkill. And it's one of those covers that always kind of creep me out, so whenever I read it, I try not to look at it, but, it came out in 1994. So it's about a girl named Lacey. Her and her mom and her sister, they're not very affluent. So Lacey's mom ends up being like able to go to like this country club and make friends with this woman. And she has a daughter named Celeste. So Lacey and Celeste kind of become friends. But then after a while, Celeste starts acting different, and her and Lacey kind of fall out as friends a little bit, and kind of become like rivals because they're both in ballet dancers. As you can see, girl dancing in ballet leotards. So Lacey ends up losing her spot in a ballet recital to Celeste, and she kind of says, like those things that we all say. It's like, oh, I could just kill her, or stuff like that. But then Lacey ends up having a dream where she sees Celeste being murdered, and so of course she ends up getting pulled into Celeste being murdered and trying to find out why Celeste was murdered, who really murdered her, because when they always say like, oh, I had a dream this person got killed, in books like that, they usually turn out to be the prime suspect to the police when they actually didn't do it. They're like just legitimately psychic or something. So it's actually a very good book. It's very suspenseful, and so of course I read this like back in middle school, and it's been a while since I've read it, but so it's a really, really good book. It's very, very suspenseful. It keeps you on your toes, and it kind of goes into a little bit about the past of like Lacey and Celeste's friendship, which gets kind of like told a little bit like in backstory and stuff. So it's a really good book. And this I got on Amazon, so it's used. It's one of those used acceptable things from Amazon, so it's not really that bad. There's a little bit of wear and tear here, and a little roughness here around the edges and around the spine. But this is 13 Tales of Horror by 13 Masters of Horror. So, so it has 13 authors that wrote short stories. Here it tells you the copyrights in here, but it also has the table of contents. So it has an introduction. It has a story by Christopher Pike called Collect Call. There's part 1, and then there's part 2, The Black Walker. So I've yet to read any of these. I have not read this book yet, but when I saw all the writers that wrote for it, I got it. There's actually 2 more, like 13 short stories together, but they kind of start running into authors that I've never heard of. So I got this one because it has tons of point horror authors where I've read some of their books, or I at least know their names. So Lucinda by Lau Litke, The Guccioli Miniature by Jay Bennett, Blood Kiss by D.E. Atkins, A Little Taste of Death by Patricia Windsor, The Doll by Carol Ellis, House of Horrors by J.B. Stamper, Where the Deer Are by Caroline B. Cooney. I know it doesn't sound scary, but take something innocuous and make it scary. The Spell by R.L. Stine, Dedicated to the One I Love by Diane Ho, Hacker by Sinclair Smith, Death Flash by A. Bates, and The Boy Next Door by Ellen Emerson White. And then has a little about the authors at the end of the book. So, I mean, how can you go wrong with stuff by Caroline B. Cooney and Diane Ho and Christopher Pike and R.L. Stine? So, 13 little short stories by 13 authors. So, and I always like these point horror books. All these like raised font and like raised metallic, like tons of them look like that. Okay, again, something that's not exactly point horror, but I didn't want to go like into any more specific authors too yet. Might backtrack just a little bit, but I found this first book at a thrift store, and when I found out it was part of a series, I'm trying to find more of the series. So what it is Zodiac Chillers, and what they do is they take signs of the zodiac and write these like chiller stories about them. There are 12 zodiac signs, but there are only 8 books. So some of the stories kind of combine zodiac signs together. So, but there are 8 books in there, and I have 2 of them. I found this first one, it's actually number 4 in the series, and it is Twisted Taurus by Ellen Stiver. So I found this in a thrift store, and when I saw that it had a number 4 on the side of it, I found out it was a series. So the cover drew me because this is actually illustrated by Bill Schmidt, who did a lot of the Fear Street book covers. So that art looked very familiar. And so Twisted Taurus, about a girl named Darcy who meets a girl named Michaela, the Taurus of the story, and she kind of has like this poisonous relationship with Darcy, so kind of like a frenemy kind of relationship. So that's the 4th one in here, and this one I got on Amazon, and compared to this, its condition is much better. Some of the metallic is worn off here, and it's a little rough here around the back edge. See, it's torn a little bit, and a little bent here at the corner. And this one's in much better condition because I got it off Amazon. This one's called Never Love a Libra, and it involves a Libra and a Capricorn. So, about a girl named Linda who's on a cruise ship, and a boy named Billy who's a stowaway, and kind of go into this dark kind of relationship with each other. And so Linda's the Capricorn, Billy is the Libra. So Never Love a Libra is what it's called. I can't wait to read it. I hope I can find the other ones. Like I said, there are 8 books in the series. The first one is Rage of Aquarius. I don't like that play on it. Have you ever heard of The Age of Aquarius? Rage of Aquarius. It's interesting. the Scorpio Society, in Leo's Lair, which I saw a synopsis of it. It involves two twin girls, so that throws the Gemini into there. So, and then Twisted Taurus, Never Love a Libra, Pisces Drowning, which involves Pisces and Cancer. The 13th Sign, which I've read the synopsis somewhere on, I think it was on Goodreads, and it said it had something to do with some sort of like alien civilizations. I'm not sure what I think about that. And the 8th one was called Virgo's Vengeance. I have seen Rage of Aquarius and Pisces Drowning on Amazon, that I might get them. I've seen like the Scorpio Society and In Leo's Lair. I have not seen anything about the 13th Sign or Virgo's Vengeance. So I might not get this entire series, but I'm going to try. And again, it's another Bill Schmidt cover art. Never Love a Libra is written by Vicky Kamita. And I think a couple of the books in the series were written by Carol Ellis, who wrote Camp Fear. So I kind of want to find those, because I know they'll be really good, if Camp Fear is any indication. So I'm going to go backtrack a little bit. I have another Caroline B. Cooney book. This one's just printed different. It's a reprint. But I originally read it when it was in the Point Horror series, and it had a whole different cover. So this is a reprint of it, and it is called The Stranger. So they reprinted it into different cover art, but like the early 90s one had like a picture of like this guy with like these really evil eyes, and he had like tree branches or tree roots growing out of his head, and he was like crawling at the dirt, and it was an awesome cover. So I really wish I could have found that version of it, but I didn't. I got this one, but when I found it on Amazon, I had to have it because I remember reading it. Not too many details of it, but a girl named Nicoletta meets the new boy in class, and his name is Jethro, but he's brooding, mysterious, and dangerously attractive. So she like follows him home one afternoon, and he slips into the forest. And he's kind of, I guess, in tune with nature, like the trees and the plants and dirt and stuff. And so it kind of implies that he's not human. Again, if you could see the original cover that I saw, it was awesome. It made me want to read it. It was another one that was books where we could borrow them. We had to bring them back. I was like this close to not wanting to bring it back, because I just liked that cover. It was like one of the weirdest point horror covers I had seen at that time. But it was like from 1993. So, but I still have this, and since how this is printed really thin, it's about, how many pages is it? 155, so it's still the same amount of pages that it would be like in one of these smaller point horror ones. So, but if you can find the original printing of this through the point horror with that cover, it's just awesome. You'll want to read it too. So, I might not get to everything that's here, but I'm gonna try my best. So let's see. All right, I have 3 books by Diane Ho, spelled H-O-H, for anybody who's wondering. So she's one of my favorite authors. She's got a couple of other books that I'm thinking about getting, but I have like her most prominent ones here. The newest one that I got that I have not read yet, and it's in very good condition. So whenever you get stuff on Amazon and they say like new, very good, good, and acceptable, sometimes you'll get a good one that looks awful and get an acceptable one that looks much better. but this was in very good condition, and I have not read it yet, but it is Funhouse by Diane Ho, so can't wait to read that. And 2 Diane Ho books that I have that are my absolute favorites that I read, again, from those stacks where you can borrow them, but I eventually found them for my own enjoyment. I can't remember which one came first, so since I pulled this one out, The Invitation, RSVP or Die, but it has A Party Like No Other as the other tagline on it. But so Sarah and a bunch of her friends get invited to the party by Cass Rockham at her mansion, and she and her friends, I think it's Maggie, Donald, Ellie, and Shane, who's a girl, get invited to this party by Cass, and she's really popular and everything, and they can't understand why they're invited to the party. And once they get invited to the party, they're actually part of this weird game that Cass has kind of come up with. And somebody at this party, though, is going to use Cass's Wickedville game to their own advantage. And all these little, like, just kind of little pranks and stuff that she wants to do to these unpopular kids that she invited, they turn more sinister and deadly because somebody intervenes with them. But there's actually a boy at this party named Riley who kind of likes Sarah, who kind of tries to make it his job to play Cass's game, but to help Sarah and her friends. So when I read it, I was not expecting who was behind all of this, but it's really interesting. So it doesn't give you like a red herring out of, like any of the friends, and it's not Cass and it's not this guy named Riley. Who is it? So it's somebody that you think you know, but you don't know, and then you find out who they are, and it's just really interesting. So it's my favorite one. And my second favorite, or maybe it is my favorite, I can't really choose because I like them both, The Accident by Diane Ho. And Megan is about ready to have, I think it's her Sweet 16 party, I believe. But she's about ready to have her Sweet 16 party, and she lives on this lake in this old house, and a ghost appears in her mirror, and it's the ghost of a girl named Juliet, and she died on the lake many years ago, and she wants to borrow Megan's body for a while to relive her life. And of course, there's something below that intention, but around her friends start getting into all these accidents. A few of her friends get in a car accident and they get hurt really bad, and then all these bad things start happening to like members of her family and her other friends, and Megan's trying to figure it out, and Juliet kind of says, well, I'll help you find out who's doing this to your friends. So it's kind of predictable, but it has a little bit of a twist that you didn't know about, but most of it is predictable about why all this is happening once you get into reading it. And also there's this little like a kind of love, not really a love triangle, but there's like this little love subplot where Megan is like, in love with her friend Justin, and he's kind of like oblivious to it. Or maybe he's not so oblivious. Maybe he's just not picking up the signals very well, or he's a little too shy himself. But but it's a really interesting read, and it is very 90s with like this hot purple, pink, and like neon green writing. So this is very, very 90s, but I think it's a good story. 1991 story. So I guess what I will finish talking about is, okay, just because I'm running out of time, I was trying to do these videos before my husband gets home from work, so he's not like, who are you talking to? It's like, honey, don't forget I do YouTube videos. So, but, Diane Ho had a little spin-off series that was written from the Point Horrors, and it was called Nightmare Hall. And it takes place at Salem University. I always want to assume that it's taking place in like Salem, Massachusetts, but maybe it's in Salem, Oregon. I don't know. But there's Salem University, and they have, a place called Nightingale Hall, but everybody there calls it Nightmare Hall because weird and strange things happen there. And so I can't remember exactly how many books were in this series, but I have up to number 27, so I think maybe there are like 30 books, but these were all supposed to be written by Diane Ho. Exclusively, just her. But I found out by going through the copywriting in the side of some of these that that's not the case. But I think there are like 30 books in the series, because that sounds about right. So, I have a few of them. So I'm not going to kind of go in order because I'll eventually hopefully find more of these, but this was actually a copy that belonged to my friend Amy, and she ended up giving it to me because I think she read it and it wasn't, up to her standards, because I let her read some of my Fear Street books, and I don't think she ever got into them as much as I did. So she gave me this Nightmare Hall book, number 27, Kidnapped, about a girl named Nora who ends up being accused of kidnapping a little girl from the daycare center where she works. And she goes to, Salem University. So a lot of these books don't necessarily take place in the Nightmare Hall, but that's what the series is called. Like a lot of the Fear Street books that happen, some of them don't even happen on Fear Street, but that's what the series is called. So, but she gets accused of taking a little girl from a daycare center, and then things that happen with like accidents start happening, like she gets strangled with a jump rope and she slips on some roller skates. So it's implied that they're connected to her past, because both of her parents are dead and she doesn't remember her childhood. So there's that. One of the first Nightmare Hall books that I had was the second book, The Roommate. So it follows 4 roommates, because there's 2 girls that share a little section of the room. So I guess kind of like those houses where you could have like 2 families live in one house. So it's 2 sets of roommates in one dorm. So there are 4 girls. There's Wild Girl Lacey. There's Mousy Maureen, who her nickname is Mouse. There's intensely brutally honest but secretive Margot, and then Danny's like the perfect blonde. And but things start happening where they're like getting like terrorized, and so it implies that one of the roommates is behind all this. And when I first read it, I wasn't expecting the twist at the end. So, because all these girls have motive to be the crazy roommate. But, so, this was one that I had, that I bought with my money. And all the rest of these, I feel like I'm missing one. Oh, yeah, I did. I put one down here. I don't know why I did. This one I got at a half price books. It was on clearance for only $1. And so I have yet to read it. But this is number 12, The Whisperer. And let's see. that one's still by Diane Ho. Because like I said, I saw a little discrepancy. So I think it was in here. Oh, my copy of The Roommate says that the copyright of 1993 goes to author Nola Thacker. Nola Thacker is actually the real name of D.E. Atkins. So it says that Nola Thacker actually wrote this and not Diane Ho. So I'm not holding anything against Diane Ho or whoever found this information out, that she was the only one who wrote all the books in the Nightmare Hall series. But some of the books in the Fear Street series, most of the Fear Street sagas, were ghost written because, R.L. Stine was also writing Goosebumps around this time. And then Babysitter's Club books, not all of them were written by Ann M. Martin. I think Nola Thacker wrote some of those, and Peter Larangis, who wrote the Yearbook and Driver's Dead for the Point Horror series, wrote some of the Babysitter's Club books. I think he wrote like 47 of them, because everything after number 35 in the Babysitter's Club series, and there was like 131 of those books, besides the spin-offs. I think like 47 of them were written by Peter Larangis. So, ghostwriting happens, especially if you're a very busy author, like R.L. Stine and, V.C. Andrews and stuff like that. If you're popular in demand, you may need ghostwriting help. So it says that Nola Thacker wrote this and not Diane Ho. I'm just going by the copyright, so not trying to be like disrespectful or anything, just letting you know. So all of these other Nightmare Hall books, I got them off of Amazon. So of course I had to get the first one. So the first one is Silent Scream, and the reason it's called Nightmare Hall is this is centered on Jess, but it said that a girl named Giselle hanged herself in Jess's room. So that's why they say weird things happen in Nightmare Hall. So that was the first book in the series. And number 3 in the series is called Deadly Attraction. Since I had The Roommate for a long time, I'd always read the preview of Deadly Attraction, and so I figured I would eventually get it. And some of these Nightmare Hall books had step back art. I've shown it on my V.C. Andrews ones, but step back art for Nightmare Hall books. So it's a girl with a guy's jacket and a pair of scissors slashing the jacket. So Deadly Attraction. So, and I have also number 22, The Vampire's Kiss. So anything about vampires, I'm going to get. And this is a very good copy of it, but it has stickers on it, so it's a little worn around the spine, so not that bad. Some of these I have yet to read. 2 that I read a long time ago, though, that I eventually got on Amazon were number 5, The Scream Team, involving cheerleaders. So, and it had a step back cover as well. I always couldn't tell if this is like fire or fog in the gym, but it was interesting. And then number 6, Guilty. So, and again, as I've gone through the copyright in one of these, it says some of them were written by Nola Thacker. I can't remember which other ones besides The Roommate, but those are the Nightmare Hall books that I have, and again, they're really good. Some of them have really good twists, and some of them are very predictable. But yeah. So, and they always said thrillers on them. That's what they're called, thrillers. So you can call them horror if you want, but they call them thrillers. But horror fits in just as well, especially some of these with like paranormal elements and stuff like that. So, but those are all the books I'm going to have time for today, and the video is running a little long. So the next time I come back, I will be back with more of my 1990s teen fiction young adult horror collection. And until I see you next time, I hope you have a good day. And I'm still planning to go back to the workforce. I'm just now waiting for, the normal background check and everything else. So once I go back to work, it's going to be some time before I post maybe another video or not. But, I still have tons of books because, I still got Fear Streets to go through and still got all these and a couple more books. But what I can fit in my Nook is what I talk about. So I appreciate you all letting me ramble, and I will be back next time for some more nostalgic 90s teen YA horror fiction. This is Courtney. Have a good day.